Okay, I think good morning in Malta, and also good afternoon even from Asia. For example, right now in Thailand, where I'm speaking to you right at this moment is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, should I go ahead and start, or should there be somebody from the conference to introduce the sessions, or because
yes. Good morning, Professor Phusavat. We welcome everyone to this second panel on the education, bringing together people also through virtual collaborative learning. The moderator of this panel is the Professor Kongkiti Phusavat from, I hope to pronounce it correctly, Kasetsart University of the Department of Industrial Engineering from Thailand. So, please, Professor Phusavat, the floor is yours. I think that the Professor Kawtharani is still not with us. Professor Kawtharani, are you here? I think that he was having a connection problems because I sent in
No, I am here.
Okay, perfect.
I'm here. I can see you.
Okay, perfect. So please, Professor Phusavat, I give you the word, and so the floor is completely yours.
Okay, thank you so much for your introductions, and I hope you can hear me very well. Okay, okay, this is the second, is day 2, and the session is on the education, bringing together people, also through the virtual collaborative learning. And I think this is a very important session in terms of the meaning of virtual collaborative learning. I think it's deal with technologies based learning process. It deals with people, because you have to work as a group. It's a peer learning community. You need to have a dialogue, and I think the expected output and outcomes and the benefits include knowledge building and knowledge sharing. So we have a very exciting sessions that I do hope, and I'm very hopeful that everybody will enjoy, we learned, and then we appreciate the term what we call the virtual collaborative learning. I think we all know collaborative learning, but to make it virtual, I think it is very exciting. And we have many speakers. So we have one keynote speaker, and we have 6 other speakers who willing and will share experience, expertise, and skill, in doing research and comments and thought on the current and the future issues related to the virtual collaborative learning. I think the keynote speaker, as I was informed, have a floor for 10 minutes. And then the other speaker, 6 other speakers, we have the floor between 7 to 8 minutes. And then we will have a round, not a round table, but at least the series of questions from the participant, as well as from the conference organizer that wish to be directed to the speakers. So having said that, it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce you to our first keynote speaker, Dr. Anvar Kawtharani from Lebanese International University, Lebanon. So if I mispronounce any of the speaker, please forgive me, because again, in Asia, we have different names and different use of words, and it might be somewhat a challenge for me. I practicing all the pronunciation before, but I probably mispronounce most of the time. So I do hope that you don't mind. So the floor is yours, Dr. Kawtharani. Yes.
Thank you so much, Kongkiti. And that's cultural collaboration, by getting to know all of us with the names as we speak right now. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, where you might be. Can you kindly, who is responsible, to provide me with access? Oh, yeah, I've got the access. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and I have to be very keen to be on time, as your kind self provided. Are you able to see my screen, please?
Yeah, we do. But if you don't mind, zoom it up. Yes, thank you.
Good, sir. So I'll try to be on time, and that is before the 10 minutes. That's exactly what we've learned. Start on time and finish before time. Thank you so much, everyone. And please, if I lag, can somebody intervene? In Lebanon, we have problems with the Wi-Fi these days. Well, we're talking about the 2-day sessions, and thank you everyone for the invitation. It's disciplinary and transformative collaboration, because when we talk of collaboration, it's the outcome of cooperation. There's two different things between cooperation and collaboration. Now, before I start, there are certain leading questions that I probably would love to share with you, and probably the answers will come from our fellow speakers as we move along. The first thing is the rationale guiding the EU, national governments, agencies, academics between Africa, Europe for collaborative internationally, and not necessarily Africa, I'm talking worldwide, but I had to take it from the theme. So I had to induce it from the theme. Generally, what's the role of the EU in the strategies of internationalization? This is something we'd like to look for. Governments, institutions, stakeholders, and individuals expect to gain from such collaboration. And how can the discourse of higher education cooperation and internationalization be seen from the broader perspective of international relations or strategic partnerships between you and Africa? Because we tend to speak of internationalization, but what we've seen, and personally what I've seen, it comes from one side, from Europe towards the others. How do we see the definition from now the other side towards Europe? Now, the second thing is inclusive internationalization. That's the first thing we think about. Inclusiveness. This is also a definition that also tends to drag and has a stretched meaning. And this is my favorite definition of inclusion. There is something called segregation, there is something called integration, and there is called inclusiveness or inclusion. In segregation, it's very clear, it's crystal clear that we go for everyone in a separate entity. Are we doing this country in the world in the name of internationalization? We have integration, getting one to adapt to the other. Are we getting the others to adapt to the African or the European mode of internationalization? Then there is inclusion, where all of us can be in the same boat, and at the same time, we have the perspectives of internationalization. So this is what I call inclusiveness. Now, to do inclusiveness, there are three things we need to know. The concepts that we develop, the equity, the diversity and inclusion. And these are what we call values, or we call them the sustainable values that we need to develop among all the continents and among the higher education, wherever you might be. And where do you think the equity, diversity, and inclusion, especially when we talk of inclusiveness, we talk of institutions, communities, and intellectual traditions. And if we talk of intellectual traditions, we need to understand each other. For example, by pronouncing just a simple name this morning, we have difficulty. If this is the simplest, it cannot be done. How can we go to beyond that? Now, the third thing is, the first thing that we look at, because of ranking, because of trying to see ourselves where we belong, which personally I'm not a fan of, this particular status of ranking universities only, we need to extend the research collaboration and sustainable to have it as sustainable. To do that, three things need to be done: co-creation, co-sharing, and co-development. And what do you mean by that? Well, it's very difficult to understand each other, the needs, Europe, Africa, Asia, whatever. But let me concentrate between Africa and Europe, and probably the Middle East, if I take Middle East into including. How do we create this sustainability? Do we have the common themes? How do we co-share? Is it only from one side? And this brings us to the definition of internationalization. And how do we have a framework? What's the framework that we need to develop? This is something that we need to look into. Now, the second thing that I also looked at, the word of collaboration these days, is we have to look at 21st century skills, or in other words, the competences. Which framework of 21st century competences are we talking about? And where do we need to extend this? In sciences, in technology, or innovative skills, which goes under cognitive competences? Because this is exactly what we just need to concentrate. Are we concentrating, ladies and gentlemen, on cognitive thinking to extract or expand what we're trying to work? We go up and say, no, we need to have more engagement in research. So what is it? The first thing, we need to have partners, we understand them, and develop common themes. How do we develop our common themes? That's a framework we need to all look at. And the most important thing, which is instruments for international mobility between not only the universities, and this is something, but mobility by enhancing intergovernment coordination. This is something that probably Europe needs to see the other side. Example, visa issues, the financial issues, and probably political issues commanding those, the other side of Europe. We only come up on pen and paper and say, yes, we have collaboration, but there are certain minor things which probably minor to the other side. But for us, it's very instrumental to have more or less government intervention into this. Now, how do we do this? Usually it's a very nice cliche, connect local to global, but to do that, one, how many of us now at this moment are able to predict the post-pandemic how internationalization will look like? Because what all of us are doing at this moment is looking at the definition of internationalization, the framework of internationalization with pre-COVID status. How are we going to now, as academicians, try to come up with a new definition of internationalization, collaboration, because I'm not going to stress on the collaboration strategies and what we should think. That's another story. How are we going to put that into our perspective? Another thing, whether Africa or what other continent, as I said, should be integrated. And at the same time, we should have inclusive global commons for interconnectedness. And the word interdependency, because one of the main elements of cooperative work. Do we need people, think tanks now these days after post-COVID? I don't think all of us, everyone can think. Everyone can come up with ideas. It's the way we need to implement the policies. And here the policies are taken differently between Europe and the other side. So we don't need thinkers anymore. We need implementers, the policy of implementation. Now, just to give you a very good statistics, I don't know if it's very clear. If you look at it just from the perspective of Africa, we have 48 countries with a population of 1 billion. If you look at it only in Mauritius, the tertiary enrollment is 40%. But if you go down, all of it is below 20, 14, 15, 16. And for this to improve in higher education, this is a very, very alarming rate to look at. In Europe, it's more than 55%. In Africa, an average of 25 to 28% of talking of higher education with no collaboration beyond that. Now, going down, what is exactly the next steps are? Or what do you think the next steps should be? We should now have, we rebuild. And how are we going to rebuild this community between Europe and Africa? We need to have one common collective purpose. And the word purpose, we need to go back to the word definition of internationalization. Why? Simply two things. How do we develop the thinking process? And how do we produce the knowledge in here? Because at universities is where the ideas clash between any area of university, whether be it Europe or Africa, needs to be developed in that area between thinking and knowledge. Now, please spare me 30 seconds and just look, please, at what exactly we mean by internationalization. The last time it was defined is an intentional process of integrating an international, intercultural or global dimension into the purpose, functions, delivery of post-secondary education, that's after the high school, to enhance quality. And please, the word quality is too broad here. What do we mean by quality? Are we talking of leadership? Are we of teaching, learning, or are we talking of resources? And research for all students and staff to make a meaningful contribution. From whose perspective was this definition taken? This definition was taken exactly from the perspective of the West. We need to reflect it back to see why we only base the definition on qualitative education without knowing the other side of what quality means to them. And now for successful international cooperation, both partners, we need to know the values that we talk about and deep understanding of rules and regulations. And please, what type of values? Growth values, sustainable values, leadership values, personal values, even client values. We need to understand this. We don't just go to personal values and develop this. So that's why we need to understand the higher education system of the other. And this is the magic word I always love, trust, to have these definitions and dynamics. What do we need to do also? One word, we need to look at the hidden, explore the underused potential to have capacities. There are also hidden links. What are these? This is, we call us, for us to come together, not just on the cliches. Yes, we know there are challenges. What kind of challenges are we looking at? We need to redefine our strategic goals. We need to have more interest in internationalization. And finally, this I think was, you've seen this before, to do this, we have to go back and develop our skills, which I would love to emphasize on. Adaptability. When we say adaptability, we're talking of two. Is it accommodation or is it modification? When we talk of adaptation and accommodation in particular, we remain with our goals, we remain with the standards, but we extend the time. Mobility, we need to have more communication for mobility with the policies of government coming in. And finally, this is my recommendation for everyone. When we talk of 21st century skills, they are divided into cognitive. The cognitive are divided into 8 skills. For to internationalize the curriculum, kindly look at the vertical yellow line. We need to map our skills locally and internationally across these 8 skills of cognitive. At the same time, it has to go to interpersonal, which is 6 skills also across the topic. And when we talk of intrapersonal, there are also 8 skills with the vertical line. So that means mapping during internationalization, 22 skills, and how many can we come up with? And to end it, and I think we need to reclaim our ability to theorize. This is what exactly we need to have. Transformation of the competences of the 22 skills, redefine internationalization. I here is my case. I think I was before time, so that to give more emphasis to our colleagues. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Dr. Kawtharani. Okay, I think your presentation touched on so many important subjects, essential subjects. I like the definition of inclusiveness. I think we have seen the development from segregation, from integration to inclusion. I think the diversity is very important, and then you highlight that a lot of university, we are taught to collaborate, but actually we don't do a lot of collaborations. So I think it is a very important issue. But again, trust must be overcome. If we want to pursue the international collaborations successfully and in a very sustainable way. So I think you have touched on so many things that I don't think it can cover it all. But diversity is difficult. I think we all agree, and the differences sometimes can be barrier. But I think you have encouraged us that there's nothing too difficult to overcome. And I think your wisdoms and your ideas are critical. So having said that, I would like to move to our next speaker. I know that the next speaker cannot be with us, but I think the video clip was sent. So we all will listen to Professor Mattis Altmann from Technical University of Dresden, Germany, and I will let the organizer provide the video clips sent by Professor Altmann. So please, thank you. Thank you again, sir.
Hello and good morning. I'm happy to be here at the panel discussion, bringing together people also through virtual collaborative learning at the PIConf2022. My name is Mattis Altmann. I'm working for the Technical University of Dresden at the Chair of Information Management, and I'm the local and international virtual collaborative supervisor and developer at our chair. I'm also working as a project manager for the Bioethics project, and my research focuses on collaborative online international learning and formative feedback and virtual exchange modules. But let's talk a little bit about the virtual collaborative learning, so the VCL, as an instrument for virtual mobility and internationalization at home activities. The virtual collaborative learning is a framework which consists of 4 key elements or design dimensions, which are namely the professional pedagogical support, the virtual learning platform, a realistic case study design, and learning analytics. But how do we use it, and what kind of activities could be done with this framework. So one of those activities are virtual mobility activities, and virtual mobility is the use of information and communication technologies, so ICT, to obtain the same benefits as one would have with physical mobility without the need to travel. This is a site from Van Schijk 2019, and this virtual mobility is an affordable instrument. It's flexible, it's time and location independent, and it's also target of the Digital Education Action Plan 2021 to 2027 of the EU. I will now talk a little bit about exemplary virtual collaborative learning modules, which were also designed to foster the collaboration in the sense of virtual mobility. And one of those modules were held in between 2019 and 2020 together with the Shiraz University in Iran. So it was a collaboration of two partners, and we designed a case study. So coming back to the realistic case study design, to develop green energy transformation ideas for Project Call in the MENA region. And we had around 25 students from the Shiraz University in Iran and 25 students from TU Dresden, Germany, which were in an 8-week pure online collaboration on the learning platform MS Teams, supervised by English-speaking e-tutors, and also with the use of learning analytics. In this module, we had the chance to get a DAAD funding to invite our partners after the virtual phases to Germany and have a common workshop on site for 1 week, which was a great experience for the students. Last summer semester, we also launched a pilot VCL within the Bioethics project together with 6 Albanian institutions, 1 institution from Slovenia, and TU Dresden, Germany. And we had over 100 students in one module, and they were developing startup ideas for the ecotourism business in Albania. So both of those modules are just examples of how it could work. And from our experience, I would like to point out how to realize virtual mobility successfully, at least from our lessons learned. So it's very important to apply early for funding, and also the commitment of students, so taking place and are being open for new experiences, also cultural competencies, and but also the commitment of academic staff, taking care of their students, preparing them for the new situation, and also preparing the common module. Next, it's also important to keep a language standard in English or another language, but it's very important to not have the language as a barrier within these modules. The most crucial aspect of virtual mobility is the assurance of study point or ECTS recognition. It needs to be made sure that at both or more than both, depends on the amount of partners, home institutions, the students get their study credit points recognized. Because when the students get the recognition at the one institution and the other not, there is an imbalance of motivation, and this might be not so successful for a virtual mobility module. Further, it's important to find a common module at both sides. I'm talking now about a binational virtual mobility activity. So you need to have a container module or a common module which is very similar to find students also fitting from the topic. And you need to plan to have an initial planning time of 1 semester before you start the virtual mobility activity together with the partner, because you have a lot of things to clarify. You need to prepare the students. It might help to arrange also an MOU and memorandum of understanding between the universities, or things like that to ensure and foster the partnership and to be well prepared to really make it a beneficial experience for the students, because it can also be a non-beneficial experience if it is not organized well. There are language barriers and students might get frustrated. But let's talk a little bit more about the advantages of virtual mobility and those virtual collaborative learning modules. So students can have an experience abroad without moving physically, and they will also acquire the so-called global skills. You might know the buzzword 21st century skills, and those global skills are a little bit newer complement to this 21st century skills, because they're adding the international component. So not just having media literacy, being able to work with digital tools and to be able to work in an online team, so forth, but being able to work internationally. And this is, in our opinion, a skill for the future working environment of most of our students. And this might also lead to an avoidance of a brain drain. Students who have an experience abroad and have the skills, so the global skills, to work remotely might not leave the country or the town where they are living, because they have the ability to work remotely abroad. And also they're getting an international network of students. It's time and money saving, at least regarding travel resources for physical travel. And this is one of the most or biggest advantages. It can be integrated in a normal semester, so students don't need to take a whole Erasmus semester to just get an experience abroad. A short conclusion. So virtual mobility and internationalization at home activities are beneficial for students to gain international experience, but it needs the commitment by staff and students, as well as the possibility of the recognition of study credit points at all participating institutions for the students. And to foster the discussion in this session, I would like to close my comments with the question: did you realize to recognize study points at all participating institutions if you have had any virtual mobility experience? I'm curious about your strategies or challenges in doing so. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Mattis Altmann, and I wish you a very fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Okay. I think I appreciate Dr. Altmann, sending us the video, the link, and also the explanations. I think his presentations focusing on, four important terms: collaborations, internationalizations, virtual, and learning. And the virtual mobility, provide affordability and flexibility to all of the higher education institutes. So I think this is an alternative way of learning and exchanging and strengthening international collaborations. But I think Professor Altmann also remind us that the language barrier, the learning assistance, learning support, clarity on the credit points, there are a lot of issues that have to come in and to make sure that the virtual mobility can be effectively implemented. So I think his insights and I think his issues that he has brought up, can be further discussed, when we go for the second round of after we or the speaker finish the presentation. So having said that, again, I would like to send my regard to Dr. Altmann. Unfortunately, he cannot join us, for the discussion, but I'm sure we can find a way to contact Professor Altmann and seek his opinion. I would like to move, to the next speaker, Professor Praveen Arora. Professor Praveen Arora is the head of the International Committee for World Bioethics Day, UNESCO chair in bioethics, and Professor Arora is also the, working at the Department of Forensics Medicines and Toxicology, India. So I would like to invite Professor Praveen Arora. Please, thank you. Professor Praveen. Okay, great. You're with us. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk in the PI conference 2022. And the topic of this particular panel discussion, that bringing in collaboration of young adults through virtual collaborative learning, is definitely very important in the current scenario. And I'll say that it's the need of the hour, and we need to definitely get better on this, because we saw during the even the COVID pandemic. So this was one method where the world, whether they were willing or not willing, or whether they were ready or not, they had to prepare themselves for collaborative learning and the virtual learning platforms. So this was a time when internationally many platforms do grew up. And although we do have an idea about collaborative learning, and Professor Anvar has already deliberated on that, so I'll focus mainly on the strategies and the tools which might be issue at times when we try to incorporate virtual collaborative learning, where maybe the facilitators and the learners, they have issues like being not similar to like physical classes, virtual collaborative virtual classes, online classes. Learners are usually they are alone when they are on the platforms. Whether it might be virtual collaboration might be synchronous or asynchronous learning platform. So when it is even when it is a synchronous platform, when we are face to face online, talking to each other, the group discussions and putting the learners together. So that is usually a challenge for the facilitators, and many strategies can be utilized for that. Like some we do have now, like Zoom, we have breakout rooms is one feature they have. So that can facilitate small group discussions among the learners. So that is one group activity. Bit of, other than that, we can like have some jigsaw techniques where we divide the topic in subtopics and give them to the learners in small groups. So that is another activity where we can actually encourage collaboration and discussion among the learners. So because online it is actually the difficult thing, as you mentioned, like it might be the language might be a barrier. So where the learners are from different countries, because when we are talking of internalization, so they are from different countries, and so that can be one barrier. But still there are ways, and maybe the text can be used for discussions, and one-to-one think, pair, share technique strategy. That is another strategy where we can make pairs of the students, they can discuss among themselves, and then they present to the larger group. So these strategies are there, which teachers, which learners, the facilitators need to incorporate, because it becomes very difficult when we talk of virtual collaborative learning to put students together and put them in the same platform and have them discussing the things, discussing the topic. And besides, there are various tools also, which I would like to emphasize, because Zoom is one, this platform that we are using. This is another format, definitely it's also a virtual collaborative learning, what we all are having right now here. So Zoom is the one platform. Then there are Google Meet, Microsoft, or maybe the Teams, and many other, Moodle and all. So these tools also come up many in the previous panel discussion. Also, we saw there were many projects which companies are coming up and trying to improve, trying to incorporate where the resources can be shared, where the assessment can also be done through the online platforms. So one challenge for the facilitators might be getting accustomed to these new tools, online tools. So that is a challenge for the facilitators, for the teachers, that they need to get accustomed, and they need to better learn these learn to use these platforms, so that they can help their learners also. And obviously technology is the basic requirement for collaborative learning, online learning using these platforms. So I think these are the two main challenges for the facilitators and the learners at the same time, along with the language and other barriers which might affect, and which we should try to look into, delve into, and try to make best of this virtual learning platform, because advantages are many. So if we try to balance, obviously the advantages outweigh much more than the challenges we do have. So there is no way, and we can't say that it's not the thing of which we can utilize. It's rather the future, and even currently we are using it. So obviously we need to take and handle those challenges at our best, and make best use of the technology for international collaboration, not only for learning but research also. So that also can facilitate. So that's all. That's I am going to end my. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Arora, for your insight. I think you have brought up, many important issues. For example, strategy of learning, I think is very important, because the technology is available, but we need to plan and we need to strategize of how the learners learn. I think this is a critical issue. You mentioned about, the small group, it might be a good start. But at the same time, assessment of many learning tools, platforms, which have been, tremendously improved over the years, especially for the past few years, I think is very important. And you also mentioned about, a lot of platforms. You also have to be careful. I mean, I know that National Geographic, back in the late 2020, they published, we call Zoom fatigue. But I think, sometimes the technology has been overused. I think it's affect on the effectiveness of learning. And I think that's, I think this is a part of the strategy of learning that you have brought out. So I think that's, this is something we have to plan, and we have to think carefully about, the next step, so that I think virtual collaborative learning, can be effectively carried out. Okay, so thank you so much, and I do hope you can stay, for the, after all the speakers complete that task, and then we can have the round of the Q&A. Okay. So having said that, I would like, yes, I would like to invite our next speaker, Professor Marco Ricceri. I don't know whether Professor Marco Ricceri is with us today. Professor Ricceri, are you with us? Because I was informed earlier that Professor Marco Ricceri might not be able to join, or might not be able to access, to our platform. If not, I know that I'm going to be making a mistake, so I contact Professor Phusavat earlier that because I hope you forgive me of not showing up in your in Lithuania, during the Make-Learn conference earlier. So I would like to introduce you, by the first name, because I definitely will mispronounce your last name, and I don't want to sound disrespectful. And again, this is a language barrier that I think the previous speaker have mentioned, and it's not as simple, and especially coming from Asia. So having said that, I would like to introduce Professor Živilė from Kaunas, University of Technology, Lithuania. And I think the floor is yours. So thank you very much, and I hope you do forgive me of not including your last name to this introduction. So thank you.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So hello, everybody. My name is Živilė Stankevičiūtė. Maybe it's difficult to pronounce. I can't understand even from people from some countries. So I am from Kaunas University of Technology from Lithuania, and it's a pleasure today to take part in that conference. So thank you very much for invitation. So at the beginning, I would like to tell a little bit about my university and a cooperation with Africa continent. Because the conference is aimed at two issues, let's say, cooperation between Europe and Africa, and also about virtual learning. So I checked, and I went to international department asking how many agreements my university has with universities from Africa. And I got answer. only one. So we have agreement with University of Johannesburg, and the agreement covers student exchange, student mobility, and also teachers mobility. So based on that agreement, each year, 3 students from Johannesburg University and from Kaunas University can go and attend lectures. Also 3 staff members from one university and another university can go for 1 week, for teaching purposes to universities. However, the good news is that one more agreement, there are some discussions now and some cooperations maybe will be established with one more university. However, everything is still in the process. And my university is not so big. We have more than 8,000 students, and about 1,000 are foreigners. When we are talking about students from Africa continent, the majority of these students are from Morocco. So we have students from Morocco. So it's the situation how my university collaborates with universities from Africa. And now I would like to share my presentation and to talk about situation actually in my university, but to talk from the teacher's perspective. 2 years ago, even a little bit more, when coronavirus started, we focused with a lot of uncertainty. And today I would like to talk about challenges and strategies for overcoming these challenges applied by university teachers in distance teaching during COVID-19 pandemic. Already before COVID-19, it was acknowledged and agreed that information communication skills are becoming increasingly relevant in every context, in studies, also in workplaces. And digitalization of higher education institutions has been growing everywhere on a national, European, and also international level. However, we focused already before COVID with one issue. Academic teachers recognized that they had a low or medium-low digital competence. So the core idea was that at my university, we conducted a study, interviews with about 50 teachers with the aim to reveal the main challenges and strategies for overcoming these challenges that teachers applied while teaching remotely. And the main focus was on 2 aspects, on the transition to distance teaching and also on the digital competencies. So we asked these teachers several questions, and one of the questions was, how did they feel at the beginning of the pandemic when they had to move to online teaching? And the main answer we got was about stress. It was very scary at the time because it wasn't clear how things would be conducted. Also, some teachers, they saw the situation as a new challenge. I wanted to try new things. So I think when we are talking about blended learning and about cooperation between Europe and Africa universities, student and staff, we can also see the situation as a new challenge and also as a new opportunity. Some of my colleagues, they saw the situation very relaxed, and some of them, they thought that I had already previous experience. Almost all of my courses I taught were prepared in Moodle. So it means that staff, that my colleagues who were prepared with some experience before, they felt relaxed, and pandemic situation and online teaching was not so big challenge for them. The second question we asked, it was to identify and describe at least 3 challenges the teachers faced during distance teaching at the beginning of the pandemic. And the main challenges were technical, let's say. The first challenge was video conferencing. It was difficult for people to decide which platform to choose, Zoom, Teams, Big Blue Button, or one more another. The challenge was also Zoom licenses, and the challenge was unstable internet connection. The next challenge was related to didactic aspects, because some of my colleagues told that at the beginning it was very difficult to reframe tasks for students. You know, teaching online and teaching offline requires difficult tasks, difficult scenarios for fulfilling these tasks. Also, it was quite difficult to reframe exams for students. One more challenge was related to ergonomic workplace and balancing of interest. And also, as a huge challenge, was identified the flow of information. It was so much information, and the information was sometimes even misleading. And you know, it was difficult to understand what source of information can I trust. One more challenge my colleagues saw at the beginning of the pandemic and even later, it was student engagement. No cameras, students participating in lectures from bed with pajamas and also multitasking. And one challenge I focused myself also very strong, it was work-life balance. It was really difficult to manage work tasks and also family activities while being at home 24 hours per day. The next question we asked our colleagues was about reasons. What do you think are the reasons for these challenges you have mentioned in relation to distance teaching? And here I would like to underline only two main reasons: lack of digital skills and communication. When we are talking about lack of digital skills, I would like to stress and to underline that no previous experience. I have never worked from distance before, never used Zoom or other equipments or programs. It was mentioned like one of the main challenge, and also communication. There was the lack of communication on various issues, especially technical ones. And the last question we asked, it was related to how you have tackled each of these challenges. And we got these answers: availability of training on university level, support of administration, support of colleague, pilot lectures with colleagues, support of family, support of students, and my individual resilience, individual overcoming of these challenges. And summing up, I would like only to stress that over time, over these 2.5 years, the mentioned challenges are no longer challenges. They are normal practice. We are used already to deliver lectures offline, online, you know, we got more experience, and I strongly believe that the future scenario is blended learning. However, for being successful in blended learning, we need digital competencies, and also we need to share responsibility between university, teachers, and also students. I forgot to write students. So it means that university, teachers, and students, we have to cooperate in order to increase digital competencies and to be successfully while having blending teaching. So thank you very much. And at the beginning of the section, I would like to get your questions. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Professor Živilė. Very interesting approach in how you try to share with us about collaborative virtual, in the virtual way, the collaborative learning in the virtual environment. I like the fact that you begin by looking at the Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, and only one university from Africa, which is actually from South Africa, in Johannesburg, which is very interesting. But why most of your students come from Morocco, which is another interesting, gap. But at the same time, your approach in looking from the policy maker standpoint, from the facilitator standpoint, I think is quite interesting, because normally we tend to look from the learner standpoint in terms of virtual collaborative learning. But I think you point out a lot of important issues that we cannot overlook, in terms of digital skills, the stress, the anxiety, in terms of digital infrastructures, the source of information that the facilitator can use, to make sure that you can facilitate collaborative learning, engagement, a lot of psychological issues that I think facilitators have to be prepared, because you no longer interact with the learners, through face-to-face. And I think this is something that we have to figure out, because the collaborative learning means somebody has to learn and learn the way or the content and the subject that is quite part of the structure of the curriculum. And I think this issue that you have brought up, I think highlights, that even though the technology might be available, might be feasible, but the humanistic issues, I think have to be further examined, so that we can make it, a more effective, learning alternative especially for internationalization, regardless of the distance and the location. So thank you very much, Dr. Živilė, for sharing your thoughts. The next speaker is Professor Esmir Demaj from Epoka University in Albania. So I would like to invite Professor Esmir Demaj, for sharing. To share your thought, your experience, and any research work that you have done with us. So, Professor, the floor is yours. Thank you. Do we have Professor Esmir Demaj with us? I see your name popping up in the participants, because we have 58 participants and your name pop up, but I think you're mute.
Esmir.
But, yeah. Esmir.
Okay, he's saying
Mike
that
I see his
that
name.
microphone is not working.
Esmir, can you hear us? You see
Yes,
your beautiful campus.
Microphone
Okay.
issue. In the chat, is written as fixing it.
Okay, let me fix in 2 seconds. Okay, we have to start counting. I'm just kidding. But it's beautiful campus. Okay. Maybe we should wait for a few
Or
moments.
maybe we can go to the next speaker and then leave after to Esmir back.
Okay.
Hello. Hello.
What's that, Esmir?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. From your iPhone.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm very sorry. I'm joining from a remote area of the country and trying to put things together. Well, sometimes technical issues do not ask for time. Sorry. Well,
Esmir, would you like that we continue with Dorsaf and give you 10 minutes more?
If you can see my screen,
yeah, we see your screen.
Go on.
Yes.
Then that's perfect. Okay. So hello everyone. I'm very sorry for the additional time. I'm very happy to be in PIConf and try to share for a short period of time a nice experience that I have in the past and that we are starting newly over. So actually, COVID, we do all agree that was a stressful time, but sometimes needs, emergencies bring into surface some things that need to be addressed and need to be fixed. We had a huge resistance in the country. So right now I'm joining from Albania, a country in the Western Balkans. And we had this huge resistance from all academic staff, well, not all, majority of them, towards not going to online classes. So there was this huge resistance, and we did actually a survey, and 70% of the academic staff in the country claimed they had no previous experience in virtual or online teaching. But from the other side, when we look it from the students' point of view, most of them did have experience in online learning. So the idea is that there is this discrepancy between not a proper, let's say, not proper capacities in teaching virtually or online, but there is a need and there is a demand for online learning from the side of students. Nevertheless, COVID passed, and we had during that period we had a very nice experience with another let's say project that is about to be finished, the capacity building project in the context of European Erasmus Plus capacity building projects. We checked with our students, and all of them wanted to have virtual classes. When we say virtual classes, it's not like sleeping in the other, let's say, side of the screen, but have the opportunity, as we are doing right now, to virtually collaborate from very different places throughout the world. So what we did, we gathered with colleagues and we said, why don't we try to promote this idea, as we believe that it is a good one. We saw our graduate students, many of them are currently, let's say, located in Tirana, in Albania, or other countries in the region, but currently working for very, very, very different companies, US-based companies or other companies. So we said, well, okay, there is something going on, but we need to institutionalize it. We need to make it more structural. And we decided that let's go and check whether we can apply for an international project and implement it in the whole region, in the whole Western Balkans region. And that's how the idea of CoWeb, which is promoting and facilitating virtual collaborative learning in the Western Balkans higher education institutions, came out. We checked from different reports. For example, a very nice report from the United Nations said that 14 out of 17 SDGs could be solved through virtual collaborative spaces or through virtual collaboration. And we said, okay, this is a very good starting point. Then the European Union says that digital transformation in the education is a priority, is an overarching priority of the 2030 educational agenda. And that was another very important, let's say, indicator that we are on the right path. And that's
Esmir, just, are you sharing different slides?
No, I did not change anything. It's okay. And that's how I was just trying to show the background of how we applied for the project. And there was, let's say, extensive literature convincing us or supporting us that we should go for such a project. Looking at the context, we thought that this project could be very relevant in the Western Balkans Western Balkans region. We needed some, let's say, experience or guidance from European partners, and we found some very good partners. And then we found some very, let's say, collaborative institutions in the region, in the Western Balkans. So this is a project that it has been deemed successful from the European Commission and will be implemented for the next 3 years in 7 different with institutions from 7 different countries, in total 10 universities. Why Western Balkans countries? It is a region that I don't know how much you are familiar with it, but it did not have a lot of cross-border collaboration in the past due to political or, let's say, culture-related reasons, etc. And we thought that this would be a very good context to implement the project. So, as if I can shortly summarize, let's say, the idea or the objective of the whole project, it would be as to build Western Balkans higher education institution capacities for international virtual collaboration. We perceive, I mean, we do understand virtual collaboration as an innovative pedagogy in teaching and learning. So from both sides of the game, let's say, with a focus on co-creating virtual blended learning spaces and course content. Because why course content? Because we have a problem in the region, not just in Albania. Our institutions, our ministries of education or state institutions related with education, they don't really see virtual classes, virtual education as, or at least they are not aware yet that this is one option of getting knowledge. So we cannot directly offer courses, we cannot directly offer degrees or programs virtually, but what we can do, we could enhance 21st century skills through implementing course content or course activities in our normal daily routine courses that would be delivered virtually. So we have students from different countries, from different, let's say, settings, different universities coming together and working for various projects, and that would enhance their 21st century skills and competencies. And at the same time, it would address or tackle this low cross-border collaboration that we have among the youth in the region. And it has worked in some of the pilot courses that we did, and we are very, let's say, confident that it would work in this project as well. Because as I said, well, our graduates are already working in such settings, in such contexts. And it seems like very, well, I would say surprising how come we are not preparing them for such contexts, virtual collaborative learning spaces. We are talking about team working, but we need to talk about virtual team working skills, not just team working skills. So if I could go a little bit deep into the needs analysis that we did about, let's say, before going for this project, we said, okay, the Western Balkans need a modernization, or let's say promoting teaching and learning practices with technology enhanced methods and tools. So going a little bit beyond the traditional tools and methods used. But for doing, or let's say for building those 21st century skills, from the other way, we need to set up some interactive virtual learning spaces and platforms, which for the sake of truth, let's say global companies have already thought about it. We can easily subscribe ourselves to those platforms or use those platforms, and they make them available and make them usable for our students. And this would help us to connect universities, educators, and other stakeholders. So to tackle the low cross-border collaboration that I just mentioned about. But is this, let's say, limited to just students and staff? No, of course, administrative staff as well, or some students that would be, let's say, educated or trained to become some e-tutors or mentors for other students would be a stakeholder as well as institutions, which would somehow be the promoters of including virtual exchanges, virtual education, virtual collaboration in our curricula, because we lack them. And it's only institutionally that we could, let's say, communicate our ministers of education or other institutions that are decision makers in this context. So we thought that one of the important target groups beyond students and academic staff would be these institutions themselves, as we make, or the decision makers of our institutions, as we make them aware that the industry, the market is currently operating as such, and we need to at least cope with the industry if we are not able to be promoters of something, or let's say proactively act in advance of the industry. At least let's follow the industry, because that's how the market or the industry is operating. Yeah, this is basically how we structured the project, and what we are aiming is, we are aiming to prepare some let's say courses or course activities that would be delivered locally, regionally, and internationally, bringing together students from different contexts, from different backgrounds, from different cultures, different languages, and make them work together in teams, very diverse teams, that would come up with nice ideas or nice project ideas. And I'm very sure that this would help them for their future, let's say, working life. As I said before, we see now that a lot of our graduates are currently working as such, and this would be somehow as a pre-training or let's say, providing them some capacities that they would need in the future. This is basically the idea of the project. I'm very happy that the project has been deemed successful, and we just started now to prepare the paperwork and start the project, and which will be implemented for the next 3 years to come. Thank you for your time. Sorry for the inconvenience, for the technical inconvenience. This is all.
So thank you, Professor Esmir. I think you highlighted one that even though there's some resistance, to do the virtual collaborative learning at the beginning, but I think instead of make it like a routine teaching and learning, in the regular classes, because there's some opposition, some uncertainty, and some resistance, then you use the project to bring about changes, to bring about people to realize there are benefits of of virtual learning. I think that's a very important that you have some pilot work that you can create, the change of mindset. And I think this is something that hopefully it will close the gap between online teaching and online learning, because of come from the two different perspectives. So having said that, I would like I just saw Dr. Marco Ricceri is here with us. But on the other hand, I would like to maintain our rotation, and then we will get back to Dr. Marco after two speakers. Then Dr. Marco, then we will come back to you. I hope you don't mind and stay with us. So I would like to move to our next speaker, Professor Dorsaf Ben Malek from Virtual University of Tunisia. Professor Dorsaf Ben Malek, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Dorsaf Ben Malek, the coordinator of English training and courses at the Virtual University of Tunis. And I'm glad to participate in this panel, because it's very important to share our experiences. Actually, I run until now 3 to 4 virtual exchanges, and I would like to call them virtual exchange, because I think it's not mobility per se, it's an exchange, because it's something that goes in the 2 directions. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so the title of our panel is Education Bringing Together People Also Through Virtual Collaborative Learning. And I think it's an inclusive title in itself, because it doesn't specify the people who can be brought together through collaborative learning. Not only students can benefit from it, but also teachers, institutions, youth, and societies. Indeed, the didactic triangle is made up of 3 pillars: the student, the teacher, and the classroom. And in the case of virtual exchange, the classroom is the virtual space. Both teachers and students are winners. It's a win-win strategy. So until now, we were speaking about what the students will win from virtual exchange, but the teachers too are winners. So it's a win-win strategy because both of them will get the experience of online collaboration in international teams. I can give you my own experience. Before my first virtual exchange, I've never collaborated with anyone nationally or internationally. So it was a great experience for me to collaborate with colleagues from other countries. So as you said, the facilitators, now in virtual exchange, we call them facilitators, but also I would like to call them mediators because they mediate between people from different cultural backgrounds. They are brought together by setting up a partnership within which they collaborate to mediate between these students. So the teachers themselves are partners. They enter into partnership to bring these students together and to collaborate. The students, in their turn, are put into partnerships. They are partners in their intercultural learning experience in order to develop their intercultural knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Indeed, the principal mission of virtual exchange is changing the negative attitudes of people into positive and open attitudes towards the other. This is the main mission for virtual exchange. We usually look at the other as strange, wrong, and dangerous, but putting people from different cultural backgrounds in the same virtual environment may erase the stereotypes and prejudices they hold of others and substitute them with attitudes of openness, respect, and empathy, and of course, accepting the cultural diversity. And I think the cultural diversity is part of the beauty of our world. We have to take advantage of this cultural diversity, of course. Because the world is changing, we have to change our strategies and try to find other potential ways of exchanges, such as virtual exchange. Indeed, the next 10-year strategic plan of EURISPES emphasizes the importance of virtual exchange, not as a substitute for physical mobility, of course, but as a pre-requirement for it. I talked earlier about the partnerships that exist in the virtual collaborative learning. In the same vein, cooperation in higher education between Europe and Africa, and Dr. Anvar spoke about this collaboration and cooperation between the two continents, should be built over real collaboration with partnerships or within partnerships. In this sense, this collaboration should be on an equal footing between partners from both continents. And as Dr. Anvar said, we don't need thinkers for us, but it should be a win-win partnership, of course. It should not be mere fulfillment of deliverables within the deadlines, but a genuine partnership. We should learn from each other within the realm of capacity building. And Professor Nada talks a lot about this learning, this two ways or two directions of learning between us. I would say that, as you know, the 21st century workplace is characterized by being multicultural, which is a real challenge for our local students. For example, Tunisians, they don't have this opportunity to go abroad and have this international experience. So involving these students in international projects, like the capacity building projects of EURISPES, may also give them real opportunities to experience working international teams. This is also possible through virtual exchange because they learn and practice working in virtual teams. And my colleague earlier on talked about teamwork, virtual teamwork, and I would like to call them international virtual teams because this will prepare them for their workplace, this multicultural workplace. And of course, overcome the challenge of working in international teams. This will bring them together to establish positive learning environment and sharpen their intercultural skills. Now, we are living in the same globe, as you know, and the students need to be aware of the fact that they should be responsible global citizens. So through virtual exchange, we should emphasize this idea of global citizenry. So global citizenry can be raised by admitting that we are all equal. This notion of global citizenry leads me to say that we are all on the same boat and we may sink if we don't collaborate in the same global space. Therefore, inclusiveness should be seen from this angle. I would rather add to youth and societies the environment, which is our shared space in this globe. there is an alarming global imbalance, not only on the opportunities given to youth and societies, but also on the level of the environment. Why I speak about the environment? Because I ran a virtual exchange about how the students will think of some solutions to their communities with respect to their cultures. And I involved students from Tunisia, Slovenia, Spain, Italy, etc., with my partner from the Catholic University of Spain and of Valencia. And we involved them in designing such projects so for their communities by using their own professions and by respecting their cultures. So they came up with great ideas. But what we noticed as coordinators is their emphasis on finding solutions for the environment. So young people, they are caring for the environment, as we don't really know. So why? Because the environment is what unites us, after all. So virtual exchange is not only a method or a tool, but it's a whole environment, or it's a whole space for the students to give a say in their learning process, especially the intercultural learning process. And thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Dorsaf Ben Malek. I think you provide a very good ideas. It's not only about academic advancement and excellence that we strive for, but a lot of hidden opportunities, in which virtual exchange, collaborative learning, can explore. You mentioned about, sometimes we have to share, the ideas, and and I think this is the way we can teach our young generation to be open-minded. Openness. You mentioned respect, empathy, and also respect the cultural diversity. And I think this is something that is added benefits, and hopefully it will add to motivation, among us, that we see the benefit is not only allowed to collaborate among the professor or instructors, but students. And you also mentioned many new terms that we have to change our mindset from instructor to facilitator and mediator. Okay, we have learning partners. I think that there's some key terms that you mentioned. So I think we realize that there are potential benefits that we might not be able to capture all, but at least you bring a lot of awareness that this is not only about academic advancement and excellence, but there are a lot of hidden benefits that we have to find time to explore. So thank you very much for your insight. And I would like to move to our next speaker, Professor Chadi Asmet from International University of Science and Technology in Syria. So Professor Chadi, if you're with us, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me to this very interesting panel, and for the conference in general. I would like to talk today more about research collaboration. It is a sort of also learning collaboration, but since we saw that the subject is the collaboration between Africa and Europe, I think that we need to shed light on the importance of collaborating in research, not only in teaching and learning. I have looked on the number of publications and citations for African countries, let's say to have an idea about the outcomes of research in African countries. I think that the screen with me, the Excel sheet. Now you can see the sharing document. Okay, perfect. So in comparing, for example, the number of documents for all African countries, we can see that for Algeria, for example, in 2010, we had 3,280 documents published in Scopus database. But at the year of 2021, we have 9,785. So it's like kind of triple. The number was triple. and it's a very good result, let's say, for Algeria. But if we see for other African countries, we see that, for example, for Angola, we were country, all universities and research centers. And in Angola, we had in 2010 only 46 publications, but in 2021, 155. In Benin, let's say all the other for other countries also, we see that the number it's between doubled and triple. But the initial number was small. So the research in Africa is in let's say, we need to work more to collaborate with European universities, European government and agencies to, let's say, develop the level, to increase the level of research in African universities. I want to shed light also on another idea which is too important now, why we talk about developing universities and educational institutions in Africa. The main reason behind this is that research and learning is one of the most important factors to realize economic and social development. All researchers mentioned or had results that we have more research, especially quality of research, that we do have development. So empirical studies that try to study the impact of the number of documents as an indicator of the quantity of research and the number of citations, which is mentioned also in the document that I share with you. They have a very interesting that the more we have publications and more importantly, we do have citations at the country level, the more is the level of economic growth. But now what can we do to help or collaborate with African universities to develop their, let's say, research centers, their research level in general? I think that in the level of research at African university have developed, but we still have a lots of work to do, a lots of collaboration now with the technological transform, with all the virtual means. The possibility to collaborate is more feasible. Before it was difficult. We need to pay resources to create a research team and make research to be published maybe in D1 or Q1 journals. But now with the virtual form, with the virtual platform, we can say that the collaboration is more feasible. It's too easier. Now, for example, if in one African university, we do not have labs because it's too expensive for them to buy equipment to make some research in, for example, in pharmacy. But now they can, for example, collaborate with one university in Europe, which has all the equipment, and they can, for example, do the theoretical part and collaborate with this lab to make some research in the lab to have results and real results. They may, for example, send them some materials to be tested in the lab, and they can do the research together. So I think the virtual form now give all African universities the possibility to expand their relationships, their collaboration with European university to develop their research, since in my opinion, and I think the opinion of most of the empirical literature, the only way to have development in all the disciplines is to work hard in research. And since research is too expensive and African countries is poor countries, I think that the virtual collaboration is a perfect solution to develop research without expending a loss of resource and to have the development in African countries. Thank you so much for giving me the floor, and I hope that the ideas that I mentioned are interesting for you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Shadi Ahmed. Again, you so highlight what Professor Dorsaf mentioned earlier, that there's a hidden benefits behind the virtual exchange and collaborations. And you mentioned about research, especially that, and I think this is a way that Europe and Africa higher education institute can collaborate. And I think this is something that is potential. And the way I get the message from you is that it has not been fully utilized, to the level that it can reach potential, whether to the experimentation, whether to data collections. And maybe this is a way that you can boost up the document and citation among African nations in terms of research. So I think this is a very important message that hopefully will encourage all of us, to really get, the planning and preparations for this type of benefits. We have Dr. Marco Ricceri with us. Earlier, we are fortunate that he could come and join us. So I would like, to welcome Dr. Marco Ricceri. He's the Secretary General of, I just looked it up, in English, the Research Institute of Italians or EURISPES. So if you don't mind, and if I mispronounce it, I apologize for that. So Dr. Ricceri, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Ecco. Now, sorry for the delay. I had a problem with connection, and we have obliged to find an alternative solution. Thanks to Director Professor Melillo and to you and all the colleagues of this important event. Our institute is dealing with economic and social research in a systemic way. So when we talk about, we make analysis about this social and the problems of education, always we considered the many aspects, institutional, social, economic, cultural aspect. If we have this systemic approach, we understand better what kind of problem we are facing with and what kind of solution and contribution we can give. I totally agree with the previous speaker, Dr. Altmann, that with the virtual connection now, we are in a more favorable situation, and it is a great opportunity for all to enhance exchange, cooperation, and to start support the students in a better way that we had the possibility in the past. To do in this direction, how to support the students, I think that the university have to make a reference to a common and sharing framework of activity. What is the framework that we have in common in this period? It is the sustainable national plans. Now we have in the international scenario a lot of tension, conflicts and so, but in the same time, all the states are committed to implement the sustainable national plans. So all the states are sending their plans to the review of the United Nations. If you open the website of United Nations, you can read what kind of strategies all the states are pursuing for sustainable goals. The plans of Italy, there's the plans of Tunisia or Algeria, and so on. And if we are going to examine, analyze very well and deeply these plans, because they give you the idea what kind of strategy every state is following, what kind of contribution to the common goal of sustainable development. This is very useful for professors and for students. Let's start from this, what we define a common platform. It is a common commitment. We are in a decade of action, as the United Nations says, and so more and more we take this framework as a reference for our activity, education activity and virtual exchange, more we are going in the same direction. Then, inside this framework, we work to define a basic principle together with the Center of Mediterranean Integration that is located in Marseille. There is an important center for integration of Med area. It is a center that makes reference to the World Bank and to the United Nations, discussing how to increase integration process, how to qualify this integration process. We arrive to select a basic principle that is the circular mobility in the area. Circular mobility means that workers or students coming from Italy to Tunisia can go there, study 1-2 years and go back and come back to Italy. The same from a student from Egypt or Lebanon or Algeria. They must have the chance to understand what kind of opportunity and experience they can do in different market, in different sectors, to come, to work, to qualify themselves, and so on. Circular mobility, that means I go, make experience, make a work, and come back in my country. To apply this principle, that means to have a strong cooperation among different institutional actors, I must have clear the type of obstacle, of barriers that I found. And because our bureaucratic barriers, visa, title not recognized, professions non-qualified, defined, well-defined, and so on. So we, now in this stage, we are trying to start with the experimental project. We want to select some region from Africa, some region from Europe, and to see how it's possible to facilitate this circular mobility of people, not only of goods and service, but of people. That is very important. So, an university can make a linkage and cooperation with the main actor of this situation, that are the public agency from one side and the private association from other side, and the university in the middle, can create some tables in which they confront. People want to move, people want to try to make new experience. So how to facilitate this? Let's go to analyze the type of obstacle and opportunity that the student find working in a sort of triangle of cooperation: university, public agency, especially at regional level, and private actors. If we prepare this type of process, if we open the way and contribute to this type of process, you give an enormous contribution for the general strategy of sustainable development, but in the same time following the national plans, but in the same time you go to give good answer to the request of the young people. I think this is very important. The last point I want to underline, it's the following. In working in this direction, we see that we can be very facilitated, especially a virtual university, by the fact that many public and private subjects still are starting using big data and very well organized information system. So we must connect to this new reality. I know, for instance, university in Milan or some labor agency, even also in the Balkan area, are starting to use big data to have a more clear and more fast, more organic information about the demand supply in the market, about the needs of a new profession. I think this is the strategy we must design to make strong the action of the university, taking the advantage of this virtual situation that we facilitate the contact, and to operate in a sort of triangle of cooperation with public and private bodies to find, select the obstacle and try to organize proposal and information to overcome any barrier. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marco Ricceri. You all agree that I think virtual collaborative learning is part of sustainability because then, I think this is a very important point. I think planning preparations that you highlight is something that we cannot ignore, and again, you need to think about different stakeholders, into this particular usage of technologies, and to advance, the quality of learning. So thank you very much. We have about 15 minutes. I think we'll say 15 minutes for the Q&A. I know that all the keynote speakers and they have touched on the issues of policies, technologies, human aspects, from the instructor, to learners, to, as a facilitator. We also focus on the scope of collaborations. We also look at the benefit of virtual collaborations. We have 58 participants, but I'm sure a lot of you probably have a lot to ask. So please feel free to maybe raise your hand and then ask questions, to any speaker. With this, this is my first time to be a moderator in a virtual environment. So, like if we have face-to-face, then it will be a little bit easier. But again, okay. So please, I think Professor Anvar, you raise your hand. So I guess the first Q&A is you, as the keynote speaker and also the first person to get a Q&A. So thank you so much. I think you have to unmute.
Thank you so much. It's always said if you have to unmute, for every time you unmute to get $1, you become a millionaire. So how much we unmute always. Anyways, I like the idea from our dear colleague when he mentioned of circular mobility. But again, the word circular mobility, if I may ask a question on this. What is the framework of a circular mobility that works for Europe? Would it be the same for Africa or the NINA and MENA region? That's a question, because I knew you said it's on the pilot. I understood that. So if that can be elaborated a little bit of circular mobility, from whose perspective are we talking about here? And the duration of the semester, taking into consideration of, do the Ministry of Education do the recognition of such circular mobility, of doing the transfers? Thank you so much.
Yes, the question about circular, well, Mr. Anwar asked.
To Professor Rice, to Professor Marco.
Obviously, the circular mobility is a principle that must be shared by all the actors and be the opportunity for a parallel cooperation among the main actors, public and private actors. So if we want to go in the direction of integration, I must go to create a condition in which a student from Florence or from Naples, why they don't go to Algeria or to university in Angola, if the framework in which they can study and operate offer the same opportunities to everybody that in Balkan area or in European area. So let's work in this direction. Let's create the cooperation agreements among university. Let's go to examine what kind of opportunity every country or every sector offers, and let's analyze together in cooperation with public and private operators what kind of barriers we have to overcome. In this, if we work together, I think we create a very positive situation that give answer to young people, especially, but also to the professor, to the teaching, and so teaching class, and so on. It's a new scenario in which too much the attention is from the exchange of goods and service, the real economy. Too much attention is given, of course, to the tragic phenomenon of migration, refugees, but there is a demand by the young people to know each other much better. Allora, to do this, I have to facilitate the recognition of the profession, the visa, the titles, and so on. Why don't create working tables based on agreements among the university and work in this direction?
Okay, thank you. I think the next question is Professor Malek. Please, please ask your questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not a question, it's rather a comment on the circular mobility. I think it's a great idea, especially for us Tunisians, to solve this problem of brain drain. We are suffering a lot from this because our doctors and professors and everybody is leaving the country, especially the well-educated people, and they never come back. So it's a solution, I think, for us to keep our brains in Tunisia or in Africa. So I think it's a good idea to solve this problem.
Thank you very much for the comment. I think we have probably one question left because Professor Nada mentioned that we need to take photos, and I think we also have a wrap up by the conference organizer. So maybe one question, if the participant has a questions. Professor Anvar, would you like to ask a question again? You raise your hand.
Yeah, I would like to recommend to first thanking the president for this wonderful get together. I would like to recommend that if we can come together, collaborate, anyone, I'm ready to start this with the organizers, to have official members from Ministry of Education for a conference to understand what exactly is being done, because we don't want to be on different banks together. So Professor, I extend my hand to anyone or colleague who would like to do this as virtual, and we expand it to all Ministry of Educations, MENA, NINA, Europe and Africa. This is a mere recommendation.
Okay, so thank you. We have about 10 minutes left. I'm not quite sure how much time it's going to take, for photos and okay, Professor Ricceri, you want to say something or?
Just to give a suggestion, I would indicate to work at with the regional authorities and with the regional agency to avoid to miss time, because if I start with the government, I need more time. If I go directly with the regional authorities, I gain time, in starting this type of cooperation. Then I prepare recommendation and suggestion for the governments, of course. But let's start from the local authorities. This is my suggestion.
Okay, having said that, okay.
I completely agree, because the issue that was raised now, it's too big. It's like an elephant, and we can't eat it in one. So I think that the opportunity to change something, it's cooperation between us. And I'm very happy to see you here, because we really established in the last year so tight cooperation that from, let's say, in some of the area, we can really do something. And for example, some of the projects that were explained today, for example, one with Živilė that we are working in, or Esmir presented the project for West Balkan that we will start working on now in the next period. And let's say, I would like also with Chadi, I visited Syria a few months ago, and we also established a cooperation which is leading somewhere. I don't speak about Kongkiti and Thailand because I like elephants, and Thailand too. And but let's say now it's the projects are somehow the source where we can somehow strengthen our cooperation. And the capacity building project for higher education is will be published in those days. The deadline will be probably February, March 2023. And we can do something, let's say, on the regions. We already started in Morocco the conversation with Sonia. She's also with us now to do the project on the open science, for example. Now for the Mediterranean region. We can do also, we already a few years ago, we started with Kongkiti the discussion for the Asia also the project, no? But these are somehow the tools where we can also get the budget, okay? Not just for the Zoom meetings, but also for traveling and be together and to discuss the issues that are interesting for all of us. And maybe we will also somehow involve some of the ministers in.
But I know that I know Professor, well, I know many people raised their hands, and I was asked to, to conclude. But if you have like a few minutes, because there are also photo opportunity, and also the conference organizer would like to make a concluding remarks, and so. Maybe Professor Praveen, you have like a few words, to add to this conversation. Please do. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Just a few comments. What I want to say, even though it might appear like she said, it's an elephant and the problems are there. Definitely, there might be various issues when we talk of globally. So as we discussed throughout, like the issues might be starting right from the beginning, means planning of the sessions and using the platforms and all. But if we are positive, I think as the technological advancements are going on in medicine, if we say the virtual reality and the augmented reality, that these are coming up. So even the practical aspects and many other things, I see that it can be covered through virtual collaborative learning. And it is certainly important, because when we talk of globalization, so if we are not at the same level through collaboration, internationalization and the collaborations, it will be very difficult. And technology is now spreading like anything. There it's hardly that there is gaps among the countries. Big gaps are not there. Obviously certain parts might be lagging behind, but we can always pick these areas, take them together and start learning, so that larger collaborations can happen even in the research, in the field of research. So virtual collaborations can be, research can also be done. So I'm very much positive. I think various learning process, and it will definitely augment learning in big ways. So that's what I think, and I think we should be positive about.
Okay. And Professor Praveen also addressed, the question recently posed by Fabio on the on the international corporations. Okay, and Professor Anvar, I know your hands is up. Do you have any very last minute questions before I? Okay, thank you. But I think for Fabio's, I hope that Professor Praveen addressed your concern a little bit, and if not, we can be in touch, because there are a lot of research area, especially on the learners, how they learn in the virtual environments. So having said that, on behalf of the conference organizer, Picasso International Conference 2022, I would like to conclude, our sessions. The title is Education, Bringing Together People, also through the virtual collaborative learning. My name is Kongkiti Phusavat, and if I had made any mistake, for the past almost 2 hours, please forgive me. Otherwise, then on behalf of the conference organizer, I would say thank you very much for your time, participations, and I will give the floor back, to the conference organizer, and I will do the Thai culture thing, which is thank you very much and Sawadee krap.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone. We will see now again at 12:30 for the concurrent sessions for PhD students all of you who would like to join these sessions are welcome. So you can go to the website and switch to the other Zoom meeting rooms. So thank you, and we will see you again in half an hour.
So now that no photos, right? So we finished the session because you mentioned in the chat that there will be a photo up and turn on the cameras.
Okay.
Yeah, I asked to turn off the camera, yes, but probably I did some because some of the people opened the camera and I did some photos.
Oh, you did? Okay. Great.
Yes,
Yes, I did that too. Thank you.
So again, thank you very much, and I wish you a very good weekend again. Yeah. So thank you, and enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nana.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you for your
Thank you all.
contribution. Thank you.
Bye.
To have
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.